The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Reaper Apparel Company. Reaper Apparel offers a casual line of superb fit, finish, and comfort. We design for those who refuse to die slowly and choose to live untamed. For those who aren't afraid to face the dark, for the ones that thrive in it, and for those who can appreciate life through a grim lens. That's Reaper Apparel Company. Go to the link in the description of this episode, use the promo code Mike Bono, and get 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my own personal merch store, the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. I have hats, I have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs, water bottles, notebooks, you name it, I've got it. The description and the link for that will be in the description of this episode. Also, right now, if you use the promo code WELCOME, I will give you 5% off of your first purchase. That's the Stupid Should Hurt merch store. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by Tactical Brotherhood, all American-made apparel, which helps support the Second Amendment. You can also find all this in the description of this episode with the link, Tactical Brotherhood. Part of every proceed does go to helping veterans, as it is a very good cause. All American-made products made right here in Minnesota. Go and check them out. Use the promo code PATRIOT15 to get 15% off your purchase. Now, let's start the show. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. This is, as always, your host, Mike Bono. I have a fantastic guest for us this week. A lady, you've seen her on screen, from The Hills Have Eyes, a bunch of stuff cut from 2014. We're going to get into all of this and what she's been doing. She does music. She has a book coming out. She's just an all-around artist. Susan Lanier joins the show. Susan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Not a problem. So, pretty excited to talk to you here. Like I said, you were in The Hills Have Eyes. So what was that like? Because I talked to Mark Scheffler from there too as well. So you two actually would have been working together on that. So what was that like working with him?
Well, Mark actually was in Last House on the Left.
Last House on the
He
Left.
was not in The Hills Have Eyes. I starred as Brenda in The Hills Have Eyes. I was the lead actor in The Hills Have Eyes. With Wes Craven, of course.
Yes.
And Wes, of course, directed Last House on the Left, and then The Hills Have Eyes was his second feature film that he directed and wrote. And it was great. I mean, Wes was really sweet, and the cast has remained friends to this day. I still talk to Michael Behrman sometimes, and Dee Wallace, and I just did a cut with Dee Wallace's daughter, Gabrielle Stone. And so it's kind of weird that in the 70s, you know, I worked with Dee, and now I'm working with Gabrielle. So that's kind of her daughter. So and they look alike and they sound alike. So it's kind of weird.
Do you ever get them confused? Just talking on the phone? Do they try to play a trick on you?
I don't talk to them on the phone all that much, but if I did talk to them on the phone, I wouldn't know which one I was talking to. They do sound alike. They're both really sweet people.
That's something, as I got older, everyone always said I sounded exactly like my father on the phone. Even my own grandmother, like she'd call and we'd be halfway through the conversation and she goes, "Wait a minute. Is this Big Mike or Little Mike? I don't know." It's like, it's your grandson. It's your grandson. But so I always have to ask for somebody says they sound the same if they can tell them apart on the phone. So you've been in acting. So what led you to wanting to pursue acting as a career?
That's a hard question to answer because I don't ever remember a time where I didn't want to do it or wasn't doing it from a very early age. I think I was 13 when I got my first theater part, theater role. I won an award in Dallas, Texas for that part. And then I had my own radio show on the number one rock and roll radio show as a high schooler. When I was about 15, I was given a radio show. So I was a DJ at night. And they were looking for an actor in Dallas who could, do dedications. It was, talk about the boy from New York City and the Beatles and all these groups were on, and they wanted a high schooler to be able to relate to the audience rather than a professional older DJ. And so I started doing that when I was in high school. So when I was out of high school, I moved to New York to do theater. So I already had professional chops under my belt when I left home. I was also a member of a theater company in Dallas when I was 15, 14. And Morgan Fairchild was in that company, and just wonderful actors that still work today in Hollywood. So it was a great training ground, Dallas was.
I would say so. It sounds like you had the chops right from a very, very early age. And I got to tell you, working in radio, that was always my dream job. Believe it or not, before comedy was growing up, I actually went to school to be a sports broadcaster. I'd done some radio work for some local radio stations in West Virginia, where I originally grew up, but fell in love with comedy. After college, a couple buddies of mine were hosting open mic nights. They were hounding me to go on stage. They were like, "You're so funny, just go on, just go on." And finally, they wore me down after a couple of months of asking every week to go on their show. And I got to tell you, I caught the itch right then and there, just hearing the laughter and seeing the joy that, you bring to people as a stand-up. I had so many people coming up to me telling me, "Hey, I was having the worst day possible. I almost didn't even come to this, but figured I need to get out of the house." And just hearing your set and what you did actually brought me to a better place. And like right then and there, it clicked with me. Like I could do this and help a lot of people by basically going on stage and telling my problems to people on stage and making light of it. So that was what did it for me. And it's been 9 years in the making, and it's a fun ride. Now, you started early on, so you had the chops kind of growing up and all the experience that you would need leading into it. So what was the difference from theater, I know you've done some theater, to going on screen in TV and in movies and stuff like that?
Well, talk about comedy, in the mid-70s, one of the big things was dinner theater, and all those shows were comedies. And so I had gone to New York and then gone back to Dallas for a little bit. And in that, from Dallas, I got cast in Last of the Red Hot Lovers, and I started doing a national tour of dinner theaters, which wasn't really a national tour from Broadway, but the dinner theater circuit, and worked with great comedic actors, and so I did about 2 years of that, just nonstop, having playing the ditzy blonde lead in all these comedy shows, plays, and so. The last one that I did was The Last of the Red Hot Lovers with Pat Paulson. I actually did that show with two or three different Barneys was the character opposite. And he was on Laugh-In. And so Pat Paulson was one of the great stand-up comedians. He's no longer with us, but he was signed by the biggest agent in town, in LA, and I'd never been to LA. And the agent came to the play because we were getting rave reviews, and the agent just said, pack it up, move to LA, and we will have you working, because I was pretty good with comedy, and very young and tiny and cute and whatever. So, some of the things, you have to, Hollywood's about meeting the right person or running into the right person or the right person seeing you to be able to give you that, break. And so I didn't have to pay dues in Hollywood. I paid my dues on the road and in other places. So when I got here, I had gone to high school with a guy named Bill Bickley, and he was a production company with Gary Marshall, and was one of the producers of Happy Days. So I guest starred on Happy Days the second day I got to LA. So from that, and Henry Winkler and I became really good friends. And so after that, it catapulted my career to other TV shows. I think I did a couple of more dinner theater plays on the road. But mostly I was just doing TV. I guest starred on all the sitcoms at that time. Alice, Phyllis, Eight is Enough, and then, the one people mostly know me from is playing Bambi on Welcome Back, Kotter. I was John Travolta's girlfriend. But what I really did do in terms of stand-up was I was cast as a series regular on Tony Orlando and Dawn doing stand-up. And I wrote my bit, which was like a 10-minute audition. And they cast me as sort of the Goldie Hawn, dumb blonde. And all of my bits were with George Carlin. So you can't really get better teaching than working with George Carlin. So I was very lucky, and I also could hold my own in terms of the comedy. And I still do a lot of stand-up comedy in my own one-woman show that I do called Swamp Cabaret. And so before COVID, I was doing that show in and around LA, sometimes on the road and in Orlando. And there's comedy with my music.
Okay. So obviously you kind of brought up your music there. I was going to get into that here in a second, but you actually got an album that you're working on right now, and you introduced some funny songs with some serious songs into that. So what was it like recording those, and how did you come up with the concept of having funny and some serious songs on the album?
I always have written music since I could remember, and then I was married to a wonderful composer named Delaney Bramlett, who had a group called Delaney and Bonnie and Friends. And Delaney was a musical genius. I met him after that group broke up in 1977, and he was always in the recording studio. So when he would be searching for words or something, I would throw in a word or throw in a phrase, and that's kind of how I learned to record and to make music, though I had done music before meeting him. So over the years, I would maybe from a place of pain write a spoof on that pain. And I had a country band in the 1980s where I did country music, and I had a song called If Roy Rogers Was My Daddy. Because when I was little, I always thought, oh God, I wish Roy Rogers was my daddy. Because he had Trigger and Bullet and, I don't know. It was just a thing. And so the song has humor to it, but it's also kind of deep and a little dark. And that always got a good response. I played the Palomino Club here in LA where, I would open with Lucinda Williams and Lacey J. Dalton and people like that. And so I still kind of do that. So I write songs that can be very touching or sad. And then I also have songs like on my new EP that's coming out one song is called Facebook, which is a spoof, a complete spoof on the incredible power of social media and Facebook. I know what you ate last week: collard green, you roasted duck and collard greens. So and then so I have a music video right now on YouTube under Sue's Lanier Bramlett, which is how I book myself as a musician. But you can find me under Susan Lanier too, but Sue's Lanier Bramlett for music. And that's on YouTube right now. So you can go, anybody that's interested can go see that song and on YouTube called Facebook. So, and I have other funny songs on the EP that is getting ready. It's just 5 songs.
Okay. But yeah, that's always struck me as interesting. Somebody who has that comedy background and then does music. Now, did you bring some of your music to some of your comedy? Like when you would do some stand-up and stuff like that, did you ever bring the music on stage with you?
No, I've emceed open mics in Los Angeles. I did one for Cleo King, and she asked me to open with a song. And I'm trying to remember which one I did. I think I did On the Way to Woodstock because I was at Woodstock. And but I just, depending on the venue, if it has a good sound system, I can play a track and, sing live with, my voice isn't on the track. I just sing live to the track. If it's a small venue in Los Angeles, but I prefer to play actual music venue clubs because that's where it's more fun. And I generally, sadly, many of the clubs I love to play have closed down because of COVID here, even in LA. And I don't know if they'll ever open again or if other ones will take their place. But I just got back from New York and they asked me to play Pangea there. And I think I'm going to go back and do my show there. So I do comedy on stage as I introduce the songs and then usually do something funny in the song. But, I like to combine the two art forms because it's fun. And I really feel like all the aspects of this business is for entertainment purposes. I can't stand to watch somebody boring on stage. So, do something, say something. And some people like Adele, she doesn't have to say anything because the sound is so powerful and so rich that it's enough. For me, I don't sing like Adele. I can tell you that right now.
I don't know.
I wish I could.
I don't know many people that can sing like Adele. But yeah, I mean, I'm with you with the people, being on stage and being entertaining. As somebody who's been in several bars and clubs and doing comedy all over, I just never could understand those comics that could just prop the mic on the mic stand and just stand there and talk. I am so animated when I'm on stage, and as I'm sure you can see now, I've talked with my hands this entire time I've been here. So I'm always moving around and on stage, and I think me personally, I like that in a comic, somebody who can work the entire stage. Now, that's not to say that those guys that can put the mic on the stand and stand behind it aren't funny, because the late great Ralphie May did that. I mean, he would just prop it and he would stand and he would just talk, and he was so funny. But I can't do that. I tried it once and I absolutely bombed because I was like, let me just see how this works. It was a little open mic night, and I tried just standing there behind the microphone, and it just completely threw me off my game. So how are you on stage? I mean, I know you said you do a little things, but when you're doing your comedy acts and all that, are you more animated and working around the stage, or are you more behind the mic stand?
It depends on what I'm talking about. I mean, I always have the mic right in front of me because, that's the only way, particularly the venues I've played that are pretty big, is for people to be able to hear me, So if it's a more intimate club, I can probably not, make sure that everything's heard in the microphone. But I haven't played any place that is so small that I wouldn't need to talk right into the mic to the people. And And it's all centered around the story, that I'm telling, even if it is just talking about the power of Facebook, let's say that for example, or my experience in Woodstock when I'm introducing the song. There's a little story to tell about it. So I'm as animated as the story organically telling the story of however animated it comes out. I don't pre-plan that. I just tell the story and, on one of the songs, I twirl a baton. I guess that's pretty damn animated.
Yeah, that I would not. I'm not that coordinated to be able to do anything like that.
I've been known to do that and throw it up and catch it. So,
oh wow, that's impressive. That impresses me. My mom still twirls baton every now and again. She was a majorette growing up and all through high school and everything like that. And she still has her batons from high school that she'll break out every now and again. And then it's like, oh, you still got it there, Ma. I don't know how you didn't pass any of that coordination down to me because I got zero coordination when it comes to that. So being that
I just did a scene in a project recently where I had to twirl the baton. So yeah, I keep those batons ready to go.
you got
So
them at the ready.
you never know what they're going to ask you to do.
Yeah, that's really true. So you've done comedy and then also, you've done some horror movies. What is your favorite type of genre would you prefer for acting, with what you've done? Where's your preferred role?
I think I'm happiest. If you're talking about, are you talking about the process or the reward? I if somebody's going to pay me a lot of money to do a film, then that's my favorite thing. But if I'm going to pick something that I just enjoy for the fun of it, and I don't work for free in any of it, but I would pick probably being on stage. I've starred at the Amundsen Theater here in LA, and I worked with Tennessee Williams, and that was wonderful. You can't put something like that. They don't really, that isn't listed in your filmography. Credits like that are not listed in your filmography on IMDb, but that's a huge credit. And if I could do a fabulous play and work with Richard Chamberlain like I did, and Dorothy McGuire and Raymond Massey every night, I would pick that. I started off in theater. I fell in love with the business in theater. And I would say still that theater is my favorite venue. And because I do sing, I can create my own project if I want to. So I can say to Pangea, book me. I can fill the house and I can do my show. And it's an hour and 20 minutes. So, that's mostly what I would do here is, I used to play a club called the M Bar, and it's just a really fun venue. Nothing as much fun as being on stage with a live audience, I don't think.
Right. Now, so and I even hate to bring this up because I'm just over talking about it, but the wonderful age of COVID that we're in, how has that affected you? And because I know how it affected me here in the great state of Ohio, where I currently live. So how has that affected you in your career, in your past, and everything that you've been doing?
Well, I had right before it started, I shot a comedy sitcom pilot. Excuse me, I had a hair in my mouth. My dog. Yeah. I have a really funny character, and it stars Casper Van Dien. And I'm hoping it's going to be picked up. I've heard positive things about that. And that would recur. So that was right before COVID started, December 2019. Then in February, late February of 2020, after we heard of this virus that was up in Washington, I was on the road doing a play with Cleo King. So we had to come back home, and luckily no one, got sick.
Right.
But I was able to do 2 kind of horror streaming projects from my own house, lighting it, and worked with the director with wardrobe and hair and all this stuff, on Zoom, and was able to do it on the internet, and then they filmed it some technical way, and those are yet to be released. So I did a couple of those. I also did a horror movie called Inverted that's getting ready to come out, and I play kind of an evil character in that. And I did that before COVID. So I had worked a little bit the year before, at the end of 2019. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. I just got back from New York. It feels like things have opened up there for all ages. It feels like in LA, things are mostly, the clubs that are opening up are younger clubs and not cabaret type of venues yet. There's some bars opening up. I'm not too comfortable about going into and just hanging out and having a beer and watching a band, though I certainly believe I believe in science. I've been vaccinated and boosted, and if I'm going to be on an airplane, man, I gotta, I certainly want as much protection as I can get. So,
Right.
And I lost another friend last week to COVID, and I'm going to the memorial on Sunday. So it is a real thing. I mean, people that I can't believe some people still don't believe it's real, but I'm going to a memorial on Sunday for somebody who passed. So I've lost a lot of friends from the beginning of COVID till now. Not all from COVID, but mostly. And then, so that's how things have changed for me. And I've become more, turned more into, I'm writing on a book. And I've been writing some more music, things that don't require me being with other people. But I was on this fabulous acting class on Zoom in New York for the last year in COVID, and we all did it on Zoom. And it was crazy how well that worked. It was mostly actor studio people. And I just had a ball doing that because it kind of kept me sane. And then I started teaching a little acting class on Zoom for just film technique, how to do improv for film and scene work for film and whatever. It's a tiny little group, and somebody can reach out if they're interested on my media, Susan Lanier on Facebook. And you might find me under Susan Lanier Bramlett too. So yeah, both, one or the other. You can find me if you're interested. But that kept me sane. And that was on Tuesday. And then on Wednesdays, I would work with the writing group on my book. So I kept myself kind of, socially connected through the computer.
Right. I mean, I know for me, I did a lot of Zoom shows and stand-up shows, and it took me out of my comfort zone, obviously, because, as a comedian being on stage, you wait for that response back when you tell a joke, and it wasn't an instant you heard the laughter or applause or whatever it was. So it really made me focus more on my writing of the jokes. And I think it helped a lot of comics grow, because yes, we're used to room full of people and getting that laughter and maybe the hecklers that are there, which I invite hecklers to my shows. I absolutely love hecklers. If I can do crowd work at a show, that's where I'm most comfortable. Mainly because I bring it to, how I was raised. It was very blue collar. to where either you were either part of the joke or you were the butt of the joke growing up. So you either learned you either went along or you were part of the joke, and I think it built that thick skin in me at a very early age. But the Zoom shows, they were weird, but I think they were helpful in that they kept us busy, so we weren't thinking about what was going on outside. Plus, the internet and where it's at now, you could reach a bigger audience than what most were used to, just because they could go on Zoom. It was on Facebook, YouTube. It's all over now, and I just felt that it was, like I said, it took me out of my comfort zone, but it was weird, but I invited it. And even to the day, I still have people like, I have a Zoom show. Do you want on it? And it's just like, absolutely. At first, I was hesitant. Like, I don't know if I could talk to my computer and be funny. I don't know that, but now I'm just like, hey, anybody who has a Zoom show, by all means, I am available. Book me, and I will be on it, because I've learned to like them. And obviously now I'm doing these interviews now through Zoom, so it's becoming part of my everyday life. And even with my day job, sometimes we're supposed to have conference calls every week, and now most of them are on Zoom. So it's nice to be able to get to see the people you're talking to, and not just a number popping up on the screen, or even just having your phone on speakerphone like the old schools were. And it's just like I said, it brought me out of my comfort zone, and I think it really helped me grow as a comic. Now, like you said, you have your book and everything like that. Just look at that. We are running down near the end of the show. I feel like I could talk to you all day. I didn't even realize we were talking that long.
Thank you.
So, what do you got going on right now that you can talk about? Anything that you want to promote? I give every guest this opportunity at the end of the show. The floor is yours.
Well, I'm look for my book. I can't even say the title of it, but it'll be under my name, and that should be out pretty soon. And I'm releasing an EP called Allergic to Texas. And I've got a couple of streaming projects coming out, and a feature film called Inverted that will be released fairly soon. And that's about it. I mean, I have been testing for a few TV shows, and so far I got pinned for one the other day, but no cigar. So that's just the name of this game, as right. You audition, and you never know when your next series will be. And I've so it's just, I'm going to enjoy the holidays and work on my book and try to get some stuff into completion, and, mostly look for my EP called Allergic to Texas.
Okay. I will definitely be looking for that. And as soon as we're done here, I'm going right to YouTube to find this Facebook song. I've been thinking about it since you told me. I have to hear it. Thank you for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to join me here. But that is going to do it for this week's episode of the Ride Home Rants podcast. I want to thank Susan Lanier for taking time out of her busy day and busy schedule to join me here. And as always, everybody, if you enjoyed the show, be a friend, tell a friend. If you didn't, tell them anyways. They might like it just because you didn't. That is it for me and Susan, and I will see y'all next week.
Happy holidays.
The Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by W Energy. Energy drinks made for gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. For gamers, streamers, and podcasters alike. Go to the link in the description where you can find the best energy drinks out there. Less caffeine than a cup of coffee. Also, no jitters and no crash afterwards. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off. Also, the Ride Home Rants podcast is brought to you by my favorite sponsor of the show, and that is Shankit Golf. Golf apparel made for the everyday golfer. We might not go out and shoot a 6 under par. We're probably going to shoot a 6 over par, but this is going to give us the gear that's going to help us rock it on and off of the course. Go to the link in the bio. Use the promo code Mike Bono and get yourself 10% off there as well.